bank officer could have found out bond numbers and the whole thing would have been out in public domain. Who has how much, all these secrets.
Assistant General Manager files an affidavit in support of the application to the Supreme Court for modification and order of a constitution bench. It's a very serious matter when you ask for modification of an order.
I accept that one. I accept that.
I accept that. General Manager files an affidavit and tells us that, look, I'm finding it difficult. The information is maintained in 2 silos.
No, but he has filed the affidavit because he's the man in the spot. He's the person who has to do this job.
He's the level at which these accounts are kept. He said you must have the person who knows what he's talking about. So, Malad, give us a little time, we'll do it. Ask for time.
While your lordship is doing that, let me just show 1 or 2 things from.
Let's.
Not mistaken, earlier also you had given 1 envelope when at the time when the interim order was passed.
Malad, so I'm sorry, Malad. So that nothing is lost in translation. Malad, I'm sorry, Malad. I just wanted one clarification as we understand. Lord, may I say one thing, Malad? If your Lordship turns to your Lordship's operative order, there's one way which we may be able to resolve this. In B, your Lordship say electoral bonds purchase, the detail will include the detail of purchase of electoral bond, the name of purchaser, and the denomination. This is one part, Malad. This we have. We can get we can get this in 2-3 weeks. C, Malad, I was saying something.
Yes, Mr. Alden.
But if your Lordship turn, there may be a way out around this. But if your Lordship turns to your Lordship's order, para 221, page 76,
Yes.
there are two parts, B and C. If you don't have to create a bridge between the two, then Malad, within 3 weeks, you can give everything.
So we'll
Malad,
dictate an order. We'll
may
dictate
I,
an
Malad,
order because let
I'm
us
sorry,
do it
may I-
in the court itself instead of.
I wanted to just
serving it.
make one respectful suggestion, Malad.
Yes.
If your Lordship sees para 221,
Yes.
Malad, if B and C are not to be matched, then Malad, we can give the information in 3 weeks. Let me explain how. If we, on one hand, is the person who purchased the electoral bond and the number of bonds he purchased, that Malad, in 2-3 weeks, we can get all the figures. In the second, the bonds encashed by political parties, which includes the date of encashment and denomination. That details we have, Manoj, that we can give. In 3 weeks, we'll put it all together. If
You
we
require
have to,
3 weeks for what, Mr. Sarvi?
Manoj, these are all in because the accounts are separate, the payment has come separately and the name was kept separately. We'll marry the two and give it.
The political parties have already given the details of the encashments made by them.
Correct, Manoj. So that in any case is there. As far as B is concerned, we can
First
give it.
details also are already available with you.
I'm sorry, Manoj.
You've
Your
been
Worship.
working on with regard to the purchases, the donors and the details of amount they have purchased. These details are already available.
Yes, so that we can give, Manoj. We'll just put that figures together and give. The trouble is, Manoj, we understood B and C meant that we had to give a complete correlation of who bought how much was received, how much was given to whom, and which bank, or rather which party encashed it from which bank. That bridge was creating that difficulty, Manoj. If you don't have to give that matching.
Right. What we'll do is we'll dictate an order.
Yes.
Before your Lordship.
After we dictate it, if there's something which remains, you can tell us. By a judgment dated
15th February.
by a judgment dated 15 February 2024, comma, this court declared the electoral bond scheme and the provisions of the Finance Act 2017, which amended the provisions of the Representation of the People Act 1951 and the Income Tax Act 1961 unconstitutional on the ground that the non-disclosure of information regarding the funding of political parties is violative of the right to information of citizens under Article 19, bracket 1, bracket A of the Constitution. Stop. The amendments which were introduced by the Finance Act 2017 to the provisions of the Companies Act 2013, permitting unlimited funding of political parties by corporate entities were held to be arbitrary and violative of Article 14 of the Constitution. Stop. Next para. In order to give full effect to the judgment which was rendered by the Constitution bench, this court directed the State Bank of India, footnote SBI, which was the authorized bank to deal with electoral bonds under the electoral bond scheme, to submit details of the electoral bonds purchased by the contributors and redeemed by political parties between April 2019, into brackets, the date on which an interim order was passed by this court directing the Election Commission of India, footnote ECI, to collect details of the contributions, bracket, till 15 February 2024, bracket, the date of the judgment, full stop. This court directed SBI to submit the following details by 6 March 2024 to the ECI. A, details of each electoral bond purchased, including the date of purchase, the name of the purchaser, and the denomination of the electoral bond, semicolon, and B, details of each electoral bond redeemed by political parties, including the date of encashment and the denomination of the electoral bond. Stop. The ECI was directed to collate the information which was to be submitted by the SBI and publish it on its website by 13 March 2024. Stop. The directions of this court are extracted below, colon, आप copy कर लीजिए, para 219 at page 76. Para.
Lord, it's 221, page 76 of the application.
The SCC has a, all right, आप ऐसा कर लीजिए, ये पैरा ऐसा है 219, 221 जो भी आप ले लीजिए. It may be on SCC online, it's 221. The para
Yes.
begins with the words, in view of our discussion above.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, the following directions are issued, and the last word which you will copy down is the purchaser's account. Okay. SBI filed a miscellaneous application before this court 2 days before the expiry of the deadline, seeking an extension of time until 30 June 2024 for complying with the directions. Stop. The petitioners before this court, Association for Democratic Reforms, and the Communist Party of India, Marxist, instituted contempt proceedings, instituted a petition invoking the contempt jurisdiction of this court against SBI for an alleged willful disobedience of the order of this court. Full stop. In support of the application by SBI, I've heard Mr. Harish N. Salve, learned senior counsel. Full stop. Mr. Salve submitted that the information which was received by the SBI was maintained in 2 separate silos and were maintained with the utmost secrecy so as to fulfill the core purpose of the electoral bond scheme. Full stop. Learned counsel submitted that if the disclosure is to be made of the information required to be submitted by SBI to ECI in the separate silos which are referred to in B and C of the operative directions, there would be no difficulty in SBI doing so, which, it has been indicated, would be completed within 3 weeks. However, it has been submitted that the difficulty of SBI arose since it construed the directions of this court in requiring it to carry out a matching exercise to match the donor details, the donor and bond details with the corresponding details pertaining to encashment by political parties. Full stop. While evaluating the submission which has been made on behalf of SBI, a reference to some of the key aspects of the scheme would be in order at this stage. Full stop. Clause 7(4) of the electoral bond scheme stipulates that the information furnished by the buyer of an electoral bond shall be treated as confidential by the authorized bank and shall be disclosed only when called upon to do so by a competent court or upon the registration of an offense by a law enforcement agency. Full stop. Thus, in terms of the provisions of the electoral bond scheme itself, SBI is requested, SBI is mandated to disclose information when demanded by a court. Full stop. What remains to be seen, what has to be analyzed is whether SBI is justified in seeking an extension of time. Next. SBI seeks an extension of time on the ground that the process of open inverted commas decoding the electoral bonds and matching the donor to the donations into inverted commas complete is a complex and time-consuming exercise. Full stop. To substantiate this argument, SBI has averred that next line, A, information is not available in a digital format. ये underline कर दीजिए. Clause 7.1.2 of the standard operating procedure regarding the sale and redemption of electoral bonds stipulates that, into inverted commas, no details of bond purchaser, including KYC and other details, will be entered in the core banking system, into inverted commas complete. Thus, the details of the purchases of bonds are not available centrally, semicolon. B, the donor details and recipient details are available in two separate silos. ये underline कर लीजिए, colon. The details of the purchasers of the electoral bonds were kept in a sealed cover at the designated branch. These sealed covers were deposited in the main branch of SBI in Mumbai at the end of each phase of the issuance of the electoral bonds. Full stop. The information on the redemption of electoral bonds, into brackets, that is the original bond and the pay-in slip, bracket, were stored in a sealed cover and sent to the SBI, Mumbai branch. Semicolon. C, matching of information in the two silos is a time-consuming process. Underline कर लीजिए, colon. The matching of the information on the purchase and redemption of electoral bonds would be time-consuming since donor information and redemption information is maintained in two distinct silos independent of each other, semicolon. D, there is a large, there is a large number of data sets to decipher, underline, colon, a total of 22,000 odd, एक second, I'll give you the figure.
22,217.
A total of 22,217 bonds were purchased between 12 April 2019 and 15 February 2024. Full stop. This would cumulatively add up to 44,434 data sets, since there are two silos of information. In other words, comma, the compilation of this information would be a time-consuming process. Full stop. Next main para. The crux of the submission of the SBI is that the matching of information to ascertain who contributed to which political party is a time-consuming process, since the information is maintained in two separate silos. Full stop. Now, the operative directions which have been issued by this court, as reproduced earlier, the operative directions of this court directed the SBI to disclose the transactions as set out in direction B and direction C extracted above. Let's stop. SBI submits in its application itself that the donor details and redemption details are available, comma, albeit in separate silos. Full stop. In other words, the directions which have been issued by this court require SBI to disclose information which is already available to it. Next para. At this stage, it would be material to refer to the FAQs on electoral bonds published by the SBI, which states that the Know Your Customer documents must be submitted by the purchaser each time that the bond is purchased, irrespective of whether the purchaser has a KYC verified SBI account. Full stop. That is, वहाँ footnote दे दीजिए और उसको FAQ question number 16 judgment से मैं आपको बाद में बताता हूँ कहाँ से लेना है आपको. That is one set of documents, into brackets, the electoral bond application form, KYC documents, and pay-in slip, can, bracket complete, can only be used to purchase one electoral bond. Full stop. Contributors who have an SBI account, as well as those who do not, have to submit the electoral bond application, Know Your Customer documentation, and proof of payment through NEFT, check, or demand draft. Full stop. Thus, the details of the electoral bonds which have been purchased and which have been directed to be disclosed by this court are readily available. Next. The FAQ, similarly, the FAQs on electoral bonds published by the SBI with respect to the redemption of bonds states that each political party can only open one current account for electoral bond redemption. Full stop. The current account would be opened by the political party only in 4 authorized branches in Chennai, Kolkata, Mumbai, and New Delhi. Full stop.
There are 29, factually, nothing turns on that.
All right,
There are
29 authorized.
designated branches.
29 designated branches.
Yes.
Full stop.
They're in the 4 cities or other places also?
No, all over the country, all over the country, not in these 4 places.
Thus, information about a political party's encashment of electoral bonds would be stored only in these branches, which would be clearly accessible. Stop. Slips and other details would have to be, would have to be submitted to the main branch. Full stop. There is no dispute about the fact, as there cannot be, that this process was duly followed. Full stop. Together with the application which has been filed by SBI for the extension of time, ADR has filed a contempt petition in which it submits that the information which was directed to be disclosed by this court can easily be disclosed by SBI because of the unique number which is printed on the electoral bond. Full stop. Irrespective of whether the unique identification number, which is not discernible to the naked eye, will enable the disclosure of details, the submissions of SBI in the application sufficiently indicate that the information which has been directed to be disclosed by the court is readily available. Next. In view of the above discussion, the miscellaneous application filed by SBI seeking an extension of time for the disclosure of details of the purchase and redemption of electoral bonds until 30 June 2024 is dismissed. Full stop. SBI is directed to disclose the details by the close of the business hours, 12 March 2024. Full stop. As regards the ECI, we direct that ECI shall compile the information and publish the details in its official website no later than by 7 days. 1 week. By 15 March, by 5 p.m. on 15 March 2024. Full stop. During the pendency of the proceedings, before the Constitution Bench, ECI had, in compliance with the interim orders passed by this court, filed its statements which have been maintained in the custody of the court. Full stop. Copies of the statements which were filed by ECI before this court would be maintained in the office of the ECI. Full stop. ECI shall publish the details of the information which was supplied to this court in pursuance of the interim orders on its website. Full stop. The miscellaneous application the SBI shall file an affidavit of its chairman and managing director on compliance with the directions which have been issued above. Stop. While we are not inclined to exercise the contempt jurisdiction at this stage, bearing in mind the application which was submitted for extension of time, we place SBI on notice that this court may be inclined to proceed against it for willful disobedience of the judgment if SBI does not comply with the directions of this court as set out in its judgment dated 15 February 2024 by the timelines indicated in this order. Full stop. The miscellaneous application for extension of time shall accordingly stand dismissed. Contempt petitions shall stand disposed of at this stage in the above terms.
My lord, I just want to say one thing, my lord, because I don't want tomorrow to be again at the end of Mr. Prashant Bhushan's contempt. Your lordships have said disclose B and disclose C, the directions. We will disclose both of that. That is easy. Correlating the purchase with the beneficiary is not something which we are required to do. Then it's easy. That we so.
When my lord the chief justice dictated the order, it is very clear. There is no scope for any confusion in the what is dictated in the court.
Lordship.
We are grateful.
Lordship, one other diary number, which is the contempt of matter related, diary number 11296. Lordship, please tag.
हमारा क्रिकेट का क्वींडम
को मिला है, इसलिए तालियों की गड़गड़ाहट से हम माननीय प्रधानमंत्री का स्वागत करेंगे। आज के इस कार्यक्रम में विश्व के लोकप्रिय प्रधानमंत्री जी, जो दुनिया में पहली बार इतने बड़े पैमाने पर महिला आर्थिक स्वावलंबन इनकम जनरेशन पर आपके नेतृत्व में काम हो रहा है। प्रधानमंत्री जी, आपके नेतृत्व में आत्मनिर्भर महिला, आत्मनिर्भर भारत की असली पहचान है। विश्व के इतिहास में अगर देखें, ऐसा कोई नेता नहीं होगा जिसने महिला सशक्तिकरण को लेके
yes, if they're not satisfied, they will do something and soon it will be out. So why are we speculating?
Okay, why are we
What is the difficulty?
Okay,
I'm giving the benefit of doubt to SBI.
Give the benefit of doubt to SBI is what Mohandas Pai is saying, Vishwajit Bhattacharya. Maybe some of the political parties on their own should reveal. Can they do that?
Why not? They got
Yes, Vishwajit.
Rajdeep, I am saying that anybody, even a first-year law student, if he reads para 219B and para 219C, says it is a mandamus issued by the Constitution bench with direct disclosure of information. It is a direction. What receipt we have got? Who has paid money from his pocket? Who are these persons? Name them. And who has paid and who has received. That's all.
No, they're saying there are two. Sir, just a minute. State Bank of India is saying, Mr. Bhattacharya, there are two different information silos that exist. Therefore, because there were 22,217 electoral bonds, this would mean that a total of 44,434 information sets have to be matched, correlated.
No, it need not be matched. It need not be matched. Only information. This matching
Let
thing.
the Supreme Court say that, Rajdeep.
No, Supreme Court does not say match it.
Okay.
I have read the order. I have read the order with the greatest of respect. I may be wrong, but I'm reasonably sure that I'm not wrong, because I wrote a piece on that very day after reading the entire judgment. I have been a banker. In fact, I have worked in 3 banks: nationalized bank, multinational bank. I have taught in the Reserve Bank of India Staff College. So therefore, what I'm saying is this is a simple issue.
So you are convinced it's a deliberate delay.
State Bank of India
so you are convinced it's a deliberate delay. Subhash Chandra Garg.
This is very extraordinary when State Bank of India is giving something which the Supreme Court has not asked for it. So there is no complication involved.
And
then the next stage, what the Election Commission will do, that also now remains to be seen.
Can I get the former finance secretary?
As a former banker, I can say this information can be provided in 1 day.
Okay, you say it's in 1 day. So does Subhash Chandra Garg say in 1 day. Subhash Chandra Garg, at the end, people will say that, look, have faith in our system. The Supreme Court likely to hear it on Monday. If the State Bank of India has deliberately delayed it, then the Supreme Court will pull them up and they will face the embarrassment in the court. That's the central point Mohandas Pai is making. Don't have a conspiracy theory. Just a minute. Let him respond.
That's all.
Let's see,
Rajdeep, in my judgment, and I have said this, the Supreme Court order is not very correct. The company should not be exposed to provide information of the donations made, which was given to them under a statute by making the amendments. Somebody can question this order. The government should have the moral courage to question this order and ask for the protection of the information which is given. But that's a very different matter. As of now, what the Supreme Court has said is the law of the land, and that direction has to be observed. And in complying with that direction is not what requires time. So we are actually barking, a wrong horse is barking at the court. The SBI is actually exposing, it's in contempt today, from today onwards. What will happen, we don't know in the Supreme Court, but it is in contempt. It should not have asked for not providing this information.
That's a huge point you're making. You're saying the State Bank of India, in your view, is in contempt. You believe purely on your reading of the order, State Bank of India should have provided these electoral bonds certainly by today, which was the deadline. According to Mohandas Pai, this is a conspiracy theory. But let me be very clear, Mr. Pai, State Bank of India's reputation is now on the line. Because otherwise it will be seen that State Bank of India is working under the instructions of the Government of India. The Government of India has something to hide. That's the implication. That's the conspiracy.
Radeep, don't you think the State Bank of India is more concerned about its own reputation than you are? I'm sure they are. I mean, they got 50 crore accounts. They have the trust of the country. They'll be very careful when they go to the Supreme Court. They'll get the best.
Well, I sure hope so, Mr. Pai. Mr. Pai, as someone who has an account in State Bank of India, all I can say is I sure hope so. I sure hope that you are right. I sure hope you are right, but the public out there has the right to know electoral bonds. That was the basis of the Supreme Court judgment, that what was happening was unconstitutional.
Let the Supreme Court decide.
Okay, we will wait. You see, Tariq will mean that it will not come in time when just before then the election code of conduct will come.
Elections are in May, Radeep. There's a lot of time.
Elections
are of time. Elections are in May.
Okay, let's leave it there. Elections are in fact in April. The code of conduct likely to come into force in the next week. Time is running out. The country deserves to know, now that the Supreme Court has said, just who were the donors of electoral bonds and who were the beneficiaries. But I appreciate my guest joining us there on our top talking point. A talking point that unfortunately not too many primetime news channels are talking about. But that's another story for another day. Let's turn from there to the other big story tonight, where Sandesh Kali strongman Shahjahan Sheikh is now in CBI custody. The Bengal police handed over the main accused in the Sandesh Kali violence case to the probe agency after 2 days of a standoff between the Mamata Banerjee government and the CBI. The police has given the CBI custody of Sheikh after the Kolkata High Court set a deadline of 4:15 p.m. today, and the Supreme Court did not agree with the West Bengal government's plea, seeking a chance to hear that plea. All of this coming in on a day when Prime Minister Modi was in Bengal and taking on the Mamata Banerjee government. The Prime Minister, in fact, met Sandesh Kali survivors, or some of them, accusing the Mamata government of shielding the main accused, Shahjahan Sheikh. The Modi visit has also sparked up a retort from the ruling Trinamool Congress, which says that the BJP has no business of taking them on, saying that their own track record when it comes to involving female victims in the past is nothing to shout about. Take a look.